Hey tubes. Okay, it did rain last Sunday when we started this. So before we went ahead and called it quits for the weekend, we went ahead and we did some buff sanding on it. If you remember before, this whole area right here had some Bondo in it, and it was kind of rough. It's still rough, but it's not as bad as it was because we did some sanding up there. We went ahead and we removed all the silver paint down to pretty much the base primer and the etchant area. I think you guys remember seeing that in the last video. So the primer kind of starts to show, you know, the shape really taking in. We got a little bit of a dimple right there we need to address. This is still rough. I haven't sanded it. It was just filled in. We got to, you know, sand all this down. We'll have to open up the trunk so that we don't hit this when we're doing some sanding up in here. You can see the lines up in there in the top right about here. This area right here needs to be built up, or this needs to be taken down. Not sure yet. We'll have to run our hands up over it. We haven't paid too much attention in here yet, but it's actually going pretty smooth. We still have some more work to do in here. There's a ridge here, but we haven't done that much work in here. So most of my work has been primarily up in here and right up in here. So let me see if I can show you down the line right here. So let me see if I can show you that little area I was talking about. Yeah, right here. See, see how the line comes in and it goes in. It's an exaggeration and out. So this, we have to probably build this up or take this down right here, one of the two, to make this line go. And that's what's nice about primering after you get done. You can kind of get a guess. And then when you get to real close, then you'll finish it off. And I'll show what I'm talking about here. You get to finish it off with a little bit smoother, and then you just spray like a mist of water over it. And then you can look down and actually see how it looks. I mean, feeling is one thing, but watching the water and feeling is another story. And we're still low here or high here. Haven't figured it out yet, but we'll get to playing with it. All this, the lows and the highs up and through here and stuff, is going to primarily be dependent on how this line looks, and then make sure that we still have our crown, you know, kind of a little bit. There's just a little bit of a bevel right here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna sand off the primer in the areas we're gonna work on. I haven't decided whether to work here or up in here yet. Just haven't decided. It's just whatever kind of gets my fancy for the time. So anyways, let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, I decided to go to the other side of the car and show you a little bit of the contours and the shape and everything, so you can kind of see how it comes up fairly flat, like right up in here, and then it starts to dip off, but it still leaves like a nice beautiful line up here. And then it comes up, it's kind of round here, and then you get this little sharp edge that comes up here. So, and then there's just barely a little bit of round going down there. I don't know if you can see it. It's mostly flat, but there's a little bit of round. And if you come down here and look too, it's mostly flat, but there is a very slight bevel here. So that's what we're gonna try to duplicate over here on this side. Just make sure we have a little bit of flat but a little bit of round on it too. So I've decided to go ahead and work in this area since it's got the least amount of work done on it yet. So just, I don't know, whatever gets you fancy, that's what, or whatever gets my fancy, that's what I decide to work on for the day. And I just kind of, I bounce around a little bit. But that way it all kind of comes together as one piece, instead of like a little piece here and then do a piece here and then figure out that this piece is wrong. So I kind of decided I'm going to work on all of it pretty much all together, a little bit here, a little bit of there, and then just slowly shape it into what it should be like. So anyways, back onto it. Guys, I'm starting on this. I'm just gonna do like a little bit of cross pattern here. I am gonna watch this trunk really close, right here, because I don't want to be you know, breaking through my tape, but just to get it quick rough, I'm just going to call it good. So kind of doing a hash pattern here like this. And then for up in this area, a lot of people don't know, you can use the top side too of these. You don't have to just use the bottom side. And so you can kind of rotate them up in here, or use the ends, kind of get in round areas like this. Then you can do your cross pattern like this and like this to kind of get your hash. And what the hash does is it averages out your pattern. Where if you're just doing just straight back and forth like this, you develop a flat area. Where if you're doing a hash like this, you do develop a flat area, but it tends to round off on the sides. And this is just some sanding techniques I've learned over the years. The other thing is you can, this is an exaggeration, but you can do your hash pattern like this, and then come down and do a hash pattern like this. And what you're actually doing is you're tilting it like that, and going this way, and then you're going this way. And as you're using the long side of your block, you're averaging out everywhere where the block works. So if you're got it on an angle and you're going like this, and then you're coming back and going like this while you're dragging it down here, but you're also going this way, you're averaging this whole edge out. And because you're on an angle, you're actually producing a little bit of an angle on it like this as well. And then you can come back, and then you can roll it like this, and you'll end up with a nice even crown all the way down. And that's what you guys really want when you're dealing with a long straight item that has a crown. You want to work more the edges, where the edges get touched more than the sides, and then where the center gets touched occasionally. And then you can come back and then finish off the centerpiece, because you've already pretty much got your crown right here. Obviously, you don't want to do too much on the edge here, because if you go just straight on the edge, then you end up with a big flat spot. And it's almost kind of what I did here. I got a little rambunctious here and not enough here, and so I ended up with a high right here, like that, instead of a more flat. But it's a work in progress, and that's one of the reasons that bodywork people, or at least the business, gets paid a lot of money for a quality job. And that's one of the reasons that a technician who knows these little tricks and how to do things get paid so much money. It takes a lot of time to produce a really good car. And one of the shortcuts they do is, rather than just repair like a small crushed area like we were going to try to do, is they'll just replace the whole quarter panel, because there's less work involved. Even though you have to cut it out and do some welding, there's less work involved. And sometimes that's why they'll generally replace a door, or just replace a whole fender rather than try to repair it. If it's got a kink in it, it just takes a long time to get it straight, where it's cheaper man hours wise for the customer just to replace the fender. So anyways, that's just a little side note on why things cost so much money when you're dealing with bodywork. It's a lot of manual labor, and the parts aren't cheap. So anyways, back to it. Okay, I'm progressing a little bit more on it here, but I want to show you guys something before I get going too far. You can see this area is high because it's metal now, and this area right in here has metal, so it's high. This is the actual seam right here, or the corner on the top, and it's starting to show metal, so I know I'm about right in here. Also, this is low right here, but you have high here, and you have metal showing through here, and that's because we actually tamped this down a little bit because of the weld in it, and then we put body filler in it, and then we smoothed it over. You're never going to get a perfect really match unless you're like some super craftsman welder, where you're using extra dolly hammers and you're spending an unreal amount of time to make it look like it's never been, the quarter panel's never been replaced here. So you have to do a little bit of trade-off if you want some quickness on the car. I mean, the car's not worth that much money, so I don't really want to spend that much time doing it. But I want the car to still look nice too, and I still want it to be structurally sound. So that's why we chose this method. It was quicker and easier. Now, if this was, say, you know, like a 1930s Nash or something, yeah, okay. You know, I might actually cut the spot welds off on the inside here and produce a perfect plate to put over this, you know, for the whole quarter panel and weld it. Or I may, you know, weld that piece on there before, or weld that onto the quarter panel skin before I even put it on there for it, so it would be perfect, you know. But we're not talking a 1930s Nash. We're talking a, you know, a low budget 2003 Cadillac CTS. So there's always a little bit of trade-off in what you want to accomplish with the budget you have and the vehicle you're working on. And maybe in 100 years, if this car's around, maybe somebody will, you know, want to do that. I don't know, but for us, it's not really an option. So we're going to have some body filler. Now I have the option of actually tamping this down a little bit here, or building this up. And since this is really close to this down here as far as the right deck height and everything, and we already know that this had some welding in it and was already low on purpose, and we have a nice fairly straight edge right here that where metal's starting to show through, I'm going to go ahead and try to bridge these two, and then where it's low, then I'll go ahead and remove the primer and put another skim on here and then sand it back down so that we end up with a nice fairly flat surface here. And that's my goal for right now, is to go ahead and do this. The other thing is I've started using that rock portion, or rocker portion, or round portion on the block to kind of up here and then kind of do a hash pattern this way to get this and this all smooth. You don't want to end up with a nice curve right here and then a big dip and then coming back up. You want this all to be smooth, nice, and you want this to be all the same level until it starts to curve down to here. You don't want it to come in and get a bump and then come up here, or go down and get a bump and then flatten out over here. You got to have it the right level. So just takes time and practice. So that's primarily what the following videos are going to be on, is the body work, how to get your line straight and things like that. So let's get back to it.